Good afternoon and not Sunday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking TSR. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris, and to my non-virtual right, yes, is Rick. Rick, say hi to the people.
Hey, folks, coming at you live from Gen Con.
Yes.
And I'm actually live with my co-host for once, which is
live
really
and in
good.
living color from Indianapolis.
Living color.
Oh,
see that?
boy, look at that. So we've gotten this far and we're already taking our clothes off. So welcome. We are coming from a very tired. We are broadcasting above the unwashed masses playing games down at the floor of the Lucas Oil Stadium. There's literally off the screen to my left is thousands of gamers around table, and our headquarters down there as well, where we're running the funnel experience and we're running the DCC tournament, so having a lot of fun. And 5e games are going on down there as well.
Yeah.
So we're having a blast. So welcome to Gen Con. Welcome back to Gen Con, Rick.
Right. It's great.
Yeah, it is. Gen Con is like no other, folks. If you've not been, it's one of those bucket list things. You got to do it. You also have to do Gary Con at some point and go do the whole pilgrimage to Lake Geneva.
True.
You definitely got to mark that one off. I mean, if I had to pick one, all truth told, I would do the Gary Con experience because it's definitely a little bit more for the hardcore.
You've convinced
gamer.
me to go. I've never gone to Gary
you have to
Con,
do it.
but Chris has convinced me.
Yeah, I mean, you have to walk around town and you have to see the house and you have to, see
Yeah.
where the original buildings were and everything. It's a fascinating it's a fun trip to do. But this is like no other experience. I heard rumors that there were 85,000 people here at Gen Con. The last probably 10 years, we've always taken over the downtown Indianapolis. Every hotel downtown, there's events going on. There's block parties going on in the street. There's just you cannot swing a dead displacer beast without bumping into something Gen Con related if you're in Indianapolis for this weekend. So it's just a lot of fun and exciting. So we've got a little bit of a different show here. We're not going to be breaking down a module. We don't have any graphics that we can kind of show off. We just figured it would be just really fun to do, since this is our regular weekend anyway, to actually broadcast a show from Gen Con. And we figured that'd be kind of cool. We've always joked that our show, Talking TSR, is like two old geezers hanging out at a hotel bar somewhere in downtown Indianapolis after a long day at Gen Con. And here we are, except it's weird. We're in an executive suite in the Lucas Oil Stadium all to ourselves, which is awesome, by the way. But we're still talking about our experiences, everything. So we're going to basically just reminisce a little bit about our Gen Con's past. We're going to touch on some cool stories about Gen Con, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on that Goodman Games is doing at this Gen Con. Kind of give you a little bit of a taste. I know that if you've been following our other Twitch shows, you've been getting that little taste, on and on from all the other shows. So hopefully we can add something to that, kind of add our little bit to it and everything. So I'm going to start by asking Rick.
Sure.
So Rick, tell me a little bit about your history with Gen Con, some of the past Gen Cons you've been to, how many you've been to. Just give us a thumbnail of like what kind of a Gen Con experience you've had.
I had somewhat of a scattered Gen Con experience. It does go back some years. I don't know the original year I went to Gen Con. The first one, I believe, though, was in Wisconsin. So I did the pre-Indy experience. Mm-hmm. I did go to Gen Con East, which was in 1989, that was a very interesting.
Which was located
in Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was actually at the Cherry Hill Inn.
Wow.
They had a very you think the Gen Con carpet, that they're kind of retiring evidently is a little crazy. They had the craziest of carpets but I remember that being my first experience really, Gen Con East actually, where I walked in and just saw that sea of gamers, where you walk in and just see a carpet of people playing, much like we've got in the stadium right below us as we speak. And it's just the best feeling. I've never forgotten that first sense of, feeling like I was home, and just I never saw that many people playing board games in one place. And then I started attending the Gen Con Indies, but sporadically. Before this, I haven't been here almost 10 years. Before this was 2014. I know you're a regular, but
Yeah.
I've been bad. It was 2014 was the last, and I think 2009 before that. So
Wow.
it's been almost 10 years, and here I am. So
That's crazy.
a lot's changed. A lot's changed. A lot's stayed the same. You know.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to get to that in a bit. We're definitely going to get to I want to get some of your impressions on this year's Gen Con versus Gen Cons past. So,
Well, first off, populated. I've never seen crowds like this, which is a good thing
Yeah.
post-pandemic to see, you know.
yeah.
We hear about the pandemic surge, but now I feel like this is the people surge, you know, coming
Yep.
back to games, which
Yeah.
is such a good thing. Gaming seems stronger than ever. I've never seen such just everything, diversity of games, diversity of people. You know, the early Gen Cons were so male-centric, unfortunately.
They were.
And that's all gone, and it's just it's great to see how this thing has grown in such a big, beautiful way. So that's the first thing is just and like you said, it takes over the town.
Yeah.
It's such a big.
It does.
You walk into pubs and things, and there's dragon menus, and the local populace has just embraced this.
Oh, they really have, which was
you
awesome
know.
because I was at some of the earlier Milwaukee shows that the local populace didn't really embrace us. They really didn't know what we were there for actually. And there was a mall nearby that we eventually found in Milwaukee, and they were just looking at, and we were not even cosplaying or anything like that. We just had gamer shirts on and stuff, and they didn't. It took them a couple of years. I remember way back when there was at one of the earlier Gen Cons, there was a Subway shop right across the street from the convention center, and it was Saturday night, and they closed at 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and they were trying to close their doors, and there was literally gamers pushing up against the door and the windows, and the workers wanted nothing to do with it. They were closing, and they were literally pushing people out, and people just were like, they had like $20 bills and they're waving them like, we just want a sandwich.
That's hysterical.
And like the local, they were just like, nope, it's 5 o'clock, we are closed. And it's like, now, I mean, like there's extended hours on the local business and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And and a lot of these local businesses really went through a hard time in the pandemic, and,
Yeah.
and we've noticed, a lot of the restaurants that were here
Yep.
are not, and they're struggling and everything. So it is really great to be able to get such an influx of people back
Yeah.
into downtown Indianapolis. And I know they have other very large events here too,
Mm-hmm.
so they're probably doing better than possibly some of the other downtowns across the country after the pandemic. But
Yeah.
but it is refreshing to see, and it's it takes a little while to get used to being jostled in crowds of people again
Yep,
after
it's
so
true.
long. It is
It's
a little
true.
bit, you think about it now. You never really thought about it
No.
except for us introverted folks that thought about it constantly. But it's like you think about it a little bit more now, and you wash your hands probably a little bit more, and you hit the sanitizer every once in a while. So it's definitely different. So what else has stood out from you from different than what you remember from like 9 years ago?
Oh boy, a lot of I guess it'd be obvious to say a lot of new games, but I'm seeing,
Yeah.
but more indie game development is a big thing. I see more people than ever showing their new board game prototypes.
Yep.
Is a big thing, and you can tell the small folks, but it's a good thing. There's
Very good.
such a healthy influx of, I feel like, new blood, new ideas. Certainly the well-established companies are there,
Yeah.
but to see all that, I'm a board game geek, as you know. As
So
much as
am
I
I.
love role-playing games, obviously, I'm huge in board games. And in the board game space, I'm seeing such innovation and such new blood coming in that I've never seen at the con like this, or at least back when I would attend. Back then it was more like you really had to be established,
Yeah.
Where now, and Kickstarter obviously has had a huge influence
Big
too,
influence,
because
yeah.
now even at the booths, you see these, Kickstarter special boxes they're selling, and that's kind of crept in and influenced things too. So I see that difference that's
Yeah.
something that, as a board gamer, that strikes me walking around.
Excellent.
You know.
So were the food carts here when you were here last?
They were.
They were.
The very last time I came,
Okay.
and I was thankful to see them.
Yeah,
This time when I
yeah.
walked out of the stadium here and I saw the food carts, I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Because it was an easy meal, because I know what it's like in the old days when you tried to get into the Ram or something at 9 p.m. It could be
Yeah.
a little, like you said, gamers when they're hungry can be like barbarians at the gates trying to
Yeah.
get in. So it was a little squirrely.
Yeah.
What struck you about this Gen Con that maybe stood out? Because I know you've been to a lot more than I have been.
Yeah, so my Gen Con experience starts way back in 1987, and so I counted, that's 36 Gen Cons have
Wow.
gone by. And I've missed probably about 5 or 6 of them, not counting the pandemic. So obviously they canceled 2020, but 2021 happened, but I was not here, so I missed one for that. But yeah, I was usually, a lot of them back in the early days, I was coming and working for other companies. But then I went through a long spell. I started out as a fan, then I was doing stuff for the RPGA, then I was doing stuff as a fan again, then I was working for companies, then a fan again, then a fan again, and now back working. So yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumps off is just the number of people, and like you mentioned, the diversity, which is just amazing of people. Like, I mean, it was probably 95% male dominated back in those early days. Easily, you're right. I mean, very easily.
I used to call it the jean army because all you saw were all these skinny men in jeans. It seemed.
Yeah, very, very true. But very a lot of different people. But I would say the evolution of the exhibit hall is something. I mean, the exhibit hall is so huge now, and it takes so long to get from one side to the other, especially when there's people in there. I mean, it is like, I mean, you could literally spend a whole day in there walking from booth to booth if you take your time and actually stop and look at the different wares. And that room just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then even over here at the Lucas Oil Stadium, where, you know, back when Gen Con first came here in 2003, 20 years ago.
Wow.
You know, there was no games going on over here at Lucas Oil Stadium. There actually used to be preseason football games on the Saturday night of Gen Con, and we would watch the football players go by, and then all the hotels and the restaurants would get really busy because there was an influx of folks coming in town for the football game. So then eventually that changed, and they moved Gen Con a little bit earlier to get away from those dates. But it seems like every year they're extending the amount of gaming. So now they've pulled seats back so that there's gaming there. There's gaming up in the concourse. There's gaming in the lower suite rooms like that we're in right now. They're almost all fill, and they're being used for a variety of purposes. It does seem like almost every square inch of the downtown is gaming. So it can be extremely overwhelming the first time you come here. And you're just not prepared for it, and it's a lot to take into. It really is. So.
You know, it's funny. I was kind of resting in the Concord for a moment after working the booth a bit, and I ran into an older gentleman, and he was here with his son, but it was his first Gen Con ever. And I could tell he was completely overwhelmed, and he was asking me, "Where's this? Where's that? Where's it?" And then he finally just said to me, you know, he said, "This is completely overwhelming." And I said, "Well," I said, "you picked a very Gen Con, busy Gen Con to start." I said, "Yeah, almost have to ease into it because it's true. You come in here and gaming just takes up every space, it seems, and we're pushing into the corners right now."
We really are.
I mean, again, it's a great problem. If you have to have a problem of too many gamers, is that a problem? I don't think so. As long as you're not pushing through the crowd, maybe it's not.
Yeah, and there is definitely times where you're pushing through the crowd or feel like you're being pushed by the crowd at the booth and everything. So that's definitely been something that I've noticed. And then there's just the evolution of the Goodman Games booth, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things at the booth later on. But our booth, when we were first here back in 2004, 2005. We were literally 2 tables across, and there was like 3 or 4 of us. Basically, there was always one person at the booth, but that was it. And you know, we joke that there was no cashiers. There's nobody assigned to replenishment. There's nobody assigned to customer service. It's like we just all did everything, and it was like it was a lot more talking and less selling because you probably nobody knew who we were. You had to talk people up a lot more. We still do that a fair amount now. But now it's also we've been around for so long. It's so weird to think that too. That people just come right to our booth and they're like, "Goodman Games, show me the new stuff and how much do I owe you?" And there's something cool about those transactions also. But it is also great talking to some of the fans. And again, I've run into a handful of people that have everybody walks up and says, "Oh, I recognize you from talking TSR," and they're like, and they kind of expect you to recognize them. It's kind of funny, and you're kind of like, "We don't see you through through the.
Not that we don't love you.
Not that we don't love you, but it's a little off-putting. Let me tell you, when people come say, "Oh, I know you," and it's like, and you're like, "Whoa!" It's like, where do I know you from, and everything. You're like, and of that, Elena is here today, and she is monitoring the chat.
Yep.
So if you guys have any questions about Gen Con or just off the wall, ask us
anything
questions.
Anything.
This is a free-form show, so if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll try and get to a natural time to kind of just kind of talk to it, kind of work them in if we can. So, do we have any right now, or probably not? Okay.
We do have some people chit-chatting in there talking about the size of Gen Con and how we've got Spirit Masquerade, who says, I went to Dragon Con years ago and there was about 40K people there, but I really think Gen Con is next level as far as people.
It is definitely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the 85K is the number I heard this year, and I know the 50th anniversary of Gen Con, which was 4 or 5 years ago at this point, I think topped out at 65. I think it was the number. So I'm pretty sure this is by far the largest Gen Con, because last year it was not back to the full capacity because they still had the mask mandate, and I know that kept a lot of people away. So. All right, so if you guys have any questions, get them in there. We're gonna keep going here and everything. So, all right, so Rick, you have to have an interesting story from Gen Con. So lay it on us. Keep it rated PG-13.
PG-13.
Yeah, so that might eliminate some of the stories.
All right, let's take care of that one. All right, let's see. I'll tell a stupid one I told last night when we were kind of hanging out. Was the one, I don't know why, I always get a kick out of this. One of the very last Gen Cons I went to, Topps Cards had a promotion where they would take a picture of you and they would put it in a card. Now, this particular card, for whatever game it was that Topps was, hawking at the time, it was a wound card. So they would put you on a card, take your picture, you would get your likeness on the card, and they would put like blood stains on your chest or something. It would say wounded, on the. Well, I ended up in line, and right in front of me in line was this Wolverine cosplayer. And not just a Wolverine cosplayer, but a good Wolverine cosplayer. He looked, the part. That had the jacket, the claws, the whole bit. So he got his card taken. He's headed out. I saw him, and just in a moment of, one of those things, I grabbed this gentleman and I said, "Come here, Logan. You've got to get a picture of me, with me, and make like you're sticking your claws into my chest." And I said to the camera, "Can you get this?" And the cameraman started laughing, and he said, "I can squeeze you both in there." And he did something with the camera and got us both in the picture. And then he put the blood where the claws were going. So I have a souvenir card at home with Wolverine stabbing me in the chest. And whoever you are out there, Wolverine, you were a good sport. You gave me a really good, memorable card. So.
Next show, we need to show that card.
I have to display. All right, I will have to. I have it somewhere. I will find it. I will
find that card. We'll get that thing scanned in there.
That's right.
And we'll actually show that. That's
there's
great.
the first graphic for next show, Elena. So
awesome.
Tell me a story, because you've got a lot of.
Well, yeah, I've got a large number of years to go through, and yeah, I mean, I could talk some really crazy things that happened. Obviously, my very first Gen Con, we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was not even dating my girlfriend, who eventually became my wife. We actually hooked up after Gen Con, so you could say kind of Gen Con was the start of it. But so a few years later, though, we actually got engaged at Gen Con.
Wow.
So the Saturday night at Gen Con. So the first Gen Con we were at, there was actually one of those at I believe it was the Hyatt Hotel, had one of the restaurants with that spin around and you can see the whole city. So we thought that was the coolest thing. So we went there. None of our friends wanted to come with us, so we just both went up there. Actually, it's not true. I believe our chaperone went with us, and my best friend's little kid's sister came with us. So the four of us went to a fancy restaurant, and we had a great time. And that was actually where we got engaged several years later. And it was so cool. We ran back down to the game hall and everything. We were running around the RPGA and TSR, actually, because TSR ran RPGA at that time. And we were telling all of our friends, we got engaged and everything. It was really cool.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun and everything. And then we called up that night at midnight, we called our parents up and told them, and they were like not shocked. We were dating for like 6 years at that point. So everybody's like, great, awesome. Can we go to bed now? It's like, yeah, all right, fine.
So Gen Con is part of your personal history.
Oh, totally.
It's ingrained
100%. And it's really cool. This Gen Con, my lovely wife, Lisa, is here. She took vacation days off, and she's actually our headquarter boss down at the Lucas Oil Stadium She is actually doing very much what we used to do for the RPGA back in the early 90s. She is marshaling all the tables out, and she's making sure the game masters all stay hydrated and scanning all the tickets and making sure all the events are running smoothly and everything. So it's kind of interesting that that's kind of all happened. And she's just like, hey, I'll come to Gen Con. She's like, but I want something to do. And she's like, and she's not a huge fan of crowds. So being over here at the headquarters, there's a lot of people around, but it's not like the booth where it's claustrophobic crowd.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, and you've got the big stadium air and everything. So it's really kind of cool. So that's probably the worst. And the other cool story, and I love telling this one too. So at our very first Gen Con, we were just walking around the streets of downtown Milwaukee one night because we didn't know what else to do. We're at Gen Con all day. We're just walking around. And we came across, there was a little theater. And I don't know if it was a little theater, but there was a theater. And up on the billboard tonight showing, Sheena Easton was playing.
Okay.
And we were like, oh, wow, we like Sheena Easton. Now, keep in mind, this is the late 80s. Sheena Easton was a thing,
it was
folks,
a big
back
thing
then. She was a big thing back then. It's a couple years after For Your Eyes Only. So we were like, we sat there and we debated. We're like, we've got an event, or we can they said tickets were available. We're like, or we can go get tickets and go see Sheena Easton. And we went back to the convention center because that's what we were there for, and we did that. So, and it was okay, it was fine and everything. Then, in a total twist of irony, our 20th wedding anniversary, we went to Niagara Falls for a couple of days. And lo and behold, Sheena Easton was playing at the local casino. And we were like, we had to do it. So we got tickets, and it was awesome. And Sheena Easton was like, I think 57 at that point, but she did a great show. And it was awesome. But what was funny was I think we were one of the few people that actually bought tickets to the show. Apparently it was one of those comp concerts for when you go to the casino. So it was a lot of older people who I don't think really knew what they were getting into because they didn't seem to really be huge fans or anything. And we were there and we're like, this is weird. It's like, I think we might be the only people
the
who
John
paid,
Denver crowd. What's
Exactly. So that it was cool that actually worked out, and we did eventually get. So we actually had our cake and ate it too.
Nice.
We actually got to go back and play our Gen Con game, and then 30-some years later, we got to actually see Sheena Easton in concert. So
the circle closes.
Exactly. So that's probably my two biggest. I mean, I have lots. I got crazy stories, but that's.
Oh, you know what? All right, I thought of one more. I'm sure
go for
I've
it.
told it on one of these shows, but I'll throw it out. I'm not averse to retelling my stories. One of the Gen Cons, I believe, one of the ones in Wisconsin, I had a friend with me, Mark, and he was painstakingly collecting every Dragon magazine. His goal was to have the whole run. And this was pre-internet, folks. So this was, him phoning up people, can you sell me this, can I swap you that, all this kind of thing. So he finally got all the dragons, including the ones that were just, the dragon or whatever. And he wanted to get Dragon #1 signed by Gary Gygax. So we managed to track down Gary at this pub. Poor Gary was alone at the end, which would never happen at Gen Con now.
Never.
Was sitting at the end of the bar by himself having a beer. And I said, we can't bother him. My friend said, oh, yes, we're going to. And he dragged me down there, and, we ended up having a chat with Gary. Gary happily signed the Dragon magazine. And then we had to put a long-standing argument to him because I always said Drow. You've heard this one.
And I always say Drow.
You're right. I've always said Drow. My friend always said Drow. And I think Drow is the accepted pronunciation. But I had to. My friend actually had to put it to Gary and say, solve this argument. Which is this idiot pronouncing it wrong? And as my witness, Gary said, either way is perfectly. Gary did say he pronounced it Drow, but he said either was perfectly fine with him. He looked me in the eye and said it was okay. So forevermore, I have Gary's approval to say it any way I want. So just,
there it
if
is.
I say it wrong next show, you heard it.
You heard it. From Gary's mouth to his mouth.
From Gary's mouth, that's right.
Yep.
I mean, a higher authority has given me approval, but I
Awesome.
like telling that story.
Do we have any questions in the chat?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
All right. Come on. We need questions, people.
Yeah.
We're running out of content. So, okay. So just a couple things. I just want to let folks know some of the really cool things that we are doing at the show, Goodman Games. So obviously at our booth, we have the Ziggurat is back. We have our obelisks back. I believe we are already out of quick start guides. I don't know how many thousand that we brought and handed out, but those are all gone. We have a special for $10 softcover rule books here. We are flying through those. We literally have piles and piles and piles of those. I'm gonna I don't know if we're going to get rid of every last one, but we are not going to be packing too many more of those up.
No.
So we're in the coupon book again. That's going really great. We have dug up some artifacts and are displaying those artifacts at the booth this year. And those are 3 vintage pinball machines from the 1970s. 70s, right, Elena? Or the 80s? 70s, 80s? Yeah, I think it's 70s. It might one or two of them might be from the 80s, but these are old school machines, and they are all functioning, and we have them all set for free play. Those are right at the front of our booth. I'm sure we've got someone's probably taken some live pictures of them at some point and showed them off. So we got that going on, which is amazing. So I've been pretty much working the booth the whole time. Rick has been working the booth since he got here. We have just been, it's a sea of people, folks.
It is.
I mean, literally the very first day, I was getting jostled and whacked with backpacks and run over with strollers and everything. There's just that many people.
Yeah.
Poor Lena got stuck in the booth. She was stuck for like 2 hours with her equipment, and she couldn't get out because there was just no way. She would have had to have swords mounted to her girdie with all of her equipment on it in order to make her away. She's like, I'll just wait for an opening, and it took a couple hours before it calmed down. So there's just been so many people. As I mentioned, we're over here at Lucas Oil Stadium right now, practically broadcasting where they broadcast NFL games from, and at our Lucas Oil Stadium headquarters. So we are running a team tournament. So that we've put on every year for the last several years. And the team tournament's great.
Yeah.
Whenever a player dies in the team tournament, they have to take the walk of shame. And the walk of shame, they have to walk up to the gong, and they have to whack the gong and let everybody know in the immediate area that they died. And everybody claps and everything for it and all that. It's great. So we have that going on over here. We have the Wizard Van here again this year.
And there's a game going on as we speak.
Yep. So Brendan has been running
X
X-Crawl games as we speak in the Wizard Van, which is great. We've had him on our show before, but Professor Dungeon Master is out at Gen Con, and he actually was kind enough to run one of his games in the Wizard Van. So I'm sure he's going to comment about that on one of his shows. But in addition to the tournament, we also have the funnel experience. So we realized that we have a lot of new people finding DCC.
Yeah.
So we wanted to give them an introductory, crash course of funnel experience for them. So that's going on as well. So all told, we have, I believe, 232, I think, tables of events running at Gen Con. Each of on average, probably 5 players a table. I know some tables are going up to 10 people. Some are a little bit lower. That's over 1,000 gamers that are playing in games that are just being run by Goodman Games.
It's wonderful.
And they were all sold out.
Wow.
All sold out. It's been insane. It's been crazy. It's been crazy at the booth down there. It's been crazy at our regular booth. It's been just a whirlwind time. We've been here since Tuesday. It's only Saturday. We have a couple more days to go, and a drive back to New Jersey, and then a hibernation period probably of just kind of detoxing from so much excitement, so many people and everything. So it's
fall in
been
a
great.
coma for a little while, but just the sheer amount of people coming to the booth and relating their
Yeah.
experiences
Yes.
with
yeah.
the game and with funnels and some of the crazy things that I had people just spontaneously would tell me,
Yeah.
what occurred in their games, and that's the great.
It is.
That's one of the wonderful things for me, at least being back at Gen Con after such a long break.
Yep.
Is that personal? It's like I said with that Wolverine player. It's that personal, these crazy personal,
Yeah.
connections you make, where you hear stories and you meet other gamers. To me, that's what this is all about.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
We've all got so conditioned, I think, to seeing faces in boxes that to see a lot of folks in person, and even people not used to seeing it from Goodman Games,
Yeah.
in person,
Yeah.
is just the most wonderful thing. So
Cool. Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, it's exhausting, but it's
Yeah.
great to be able to reach so many people in such
Oh,
a
yeah.
short amount of time. It's why we do shows like this.
Yeah.
We can reach out to so many people in a short amount of time, and being live and in person at a convention, it's the same thing. And
Yeah.
we love it. It exhausts us. It's not like 20, 30 years ago
No.
when we could go 22 hours and
No.
get by on a couple hours of sleep and get right back to it and everything. Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
well,
so.
I think we're getting older too, but
Well, I think that is the big part of it. So,
but it's like you said, the booth has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time I was
Yeah.
behind the booth, it was me, Joe Goodman, and
Yeah.
Mrs. Goodman Games. And
Yes.
that was it.
Yep.
And there was the
was
booth,
two
the
tables.
booth ran for a
Yep.
while with the three of us behind,
Yeah.
I think, and that was it. And the amount of personnel and the amount of people coming up and asking questions, and
Yeah.
like you said, just the name recognition of Goodman Games and
Yep.
and our game systems, and people come up who are very experienced.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they've run so many games, and they're
And-
eager
and
to tell you about it.
Many of those are now our wonderful volunteers
yeah.
that actually put in many, many hours actually working the booth and answering the questions, sometimes better than us.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are, I mean, we love them to death because they are just helping us out on so many levels. And to be able to turn, a customer over to them who doesn't know anything about DCC and then
Yeah.
get them to get them the whole experience and everything, it's truly wonderful. And,
Yeah.
and the chat up all the products and everything are great.
It's
So,
been a great evolution. It's really
Yeah.
seeing where things, because I feel like Goodman Games has grown along with Gen Con. It just,
Has.
Gen Con gotten bigger,
Yep.
Goodman Games has expanded, and,
Yeah.
and the amount of people we reach now is just wonderful.
Yeah, it's
So-
immense. So, do we have any questions?
We do.
Oh,
so
woo.
we've got one from Spirit Masquerade. So what's the strategy to feed yourself at Gen Con?
That's a great question.
IV?
Yeah, that would be good. So, I'll let a little secret on you is that on Wednesday night, Tuesday night. I think it was Tuesday night. We actually treated ourselves to a pretty good restaurant, and we ordered an extra entree. And we have a refrigerator in our room and a microwave. And that has come in very handy. We have been doing a lot of eating in between at weird times, but it's so difficult. I'll be honest with you. Origins is great in the fact that right across the street from the convention center, Origins, is this wonderful farm market place where there's all these different ethnic foods. And it's actually like home cooking, and it's literally a 5-minute walk to go over there and get some wholesome food. And actually, the last time I was there, not this year, but the year before, I felt like I ate wonderfully. And then I got to Gen Con, not so much. It's so hard with the timing. The food trucks are amazing,
Yeah.
except for the fact that they're out in the 90-degree heat, and sometimes it's a half hour or longer wait to get your food, and we do not have that kind of time. We get yelled at when we're not at the booth for that long, so no, it's just very tricky. I'm to the point, I used to work in the field all the time. I've got water with me, I've got food with me, I've got enough to get by where I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pass out if I don't get food. But it is literally, you're eating sometimes dinner at 4:30 because you've got all this other
Yeah.
stuff going on. It's really tricky.
You
so.
learn flexibility and to stay
Yeah.
hydrated. Frankly, that's the main thing.
Yeah,
is,
but also not easy to do when you're as old as we are. A lot easier to do that when you're a lot younger.
Yeah.
It's a lot harsher on the system now. But yeah, that's probably a key. That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you really got to think about when you come. You don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You want granola bars with you. You want some snacks with you. You want water. You can get all that stuff, but you know what? You're gonna pay for it a
Yeah.
lot, and there's no need to pay $10 for a bottle of water if you don't need to. So don't just bring your own water. I mean, that's a thing. So, any other questions? Uh-oh.
We got one from the history professor for
Uh-oh.
Rick.
Uh-oh.
Where'd you get your shirt?
Where did I get
there
my
it is.
shirt? I've already
Yeah.
been asked that before we went on the air.
Yeah.
I do not know, but I promised you, I should say I don't remember. I did not get it at the Gen Con, I will say that. Now, this is, again, the outed, this wonderful shirt, but I will say, whoever the company is, and I will give them a free advertisement on our next show, I promise. They had gelatinous cubes, they had Tarasques, they had all manner of different shirts. They had like 8 different shirts. I went with the Owlbear because I love owlbears.
It's classic.
And I wanted something that I could, dramatically reveal my Talking TSR shirt underneath. So
Nice.
I felt like this was a special show required, right?
Yeah.
A little
So
something.
I have a question for the history professor. Why are you not here at Gen Con?
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but I want to know that. So, because you missed a whole bunch of the 5E team getting together
That's
and,
right.
and mingling. So
You missed the mingling.
you missed the mingling. So we'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
So, and Elena is busy typing away. Do we have any other questions?
Just if there's any announcements.
Mike and I did a show right before this show, and we don't really have any big announcements. We're actually saving our big announcements for after Gen Con. The problem with Gen Con is there's so much going on. when you make big announcements, they kind of get lost, actually, because everybody's making big announcements and we're on the road. So we're going to be there's going to be a very big announcement on August 11th that you do not want to miss. And that will be during our X-Crawl Kickstarter countdown show. And then we're also going to be, normally at Gen Con, we would always do the What's New at Goodman Games seminar. We're not doing that this year because we can do a much better job with that show via Twitch. Back in the
home studios,
in our
so to
home
speak,
studios,
right?
if you will, exactly. So in 3 or 4 weeks, end of August, beginning of September, look out for an announcement for that show. I'm assuming we're gonna have some announcements on that show. But like I said, August 11th, if you're waiting for the big juicy reveal of the next big project that nobody knows about, that's when that's coming. So make sure and I'm sure we'll plaster that all over our website and through social media as well. So if you don't actually catch it live, you'll be able to get that information. So no big huge announcements at Gen Con per se. And we're gonna check questions a little bit more.
We've got 2 more.
Okay.
One from Amazing Shake. Did you make it to RAM yet?
I did not.
I did not eat.
Oh,
I didn't
you
even
have to
see
get-
the sign, and I
Okay.
feel that's always. I have to say, that's always when I feel like I'm at Gen Con, is when
Yeah.
I walk down the street and I see the Ram. And every Gen Con I've come here, I've eaten at the Ram. So I guess
Okay.
somehow I've got
Have
to
to
get
do
there.
it.
I've got to work my way in there tonight or tomorrow, or
Yeah.
I'm going to be in trouble. So
Second question. What's the coolest thing you've seen so far at the show?
Wow. I'm going to say the cosplayer of Farah, one of the iconic DCC characters, and we got lots of pictures of her in front of our booth and also in front of our stadium. That was really cool. Wow, the lines of people trying to get Lorcana cards is crazy. So apparently, if you want the option to buy a box of Lorcana cards, you need to get in line at 6 p.m. for 10 a.m. the next morning. And then when you come into the conference center at like 8 a.m., the lines are like all over the place, and you can't, you can't swing that displacer cat, that dead displacer cat, without banging into somebody standing in a various Lorcana line. Actually, on my way up here too, there was a Lorcana seminar, and there was people all stacked. That's what all those people were in the hallway downstairs were waiting for. So yeah, that's probably pretty impressive. Do you have anything?
that was
I'm trying to
nice.
think.
I know. I was trying to. It's funny. I couldn't help but think of the Lorcana thing, and I have
Yeah.
to say, I even read that some, Good Samaritans actually brought Dunkin' Donuts and coffee to feed these poor waifs
that's
online,
awesome.
or
Yeah.
these poor individuals that were online. Because I can't even imagine. There's no game I think I could stay in line from 6 p.m. on. But for me, it's no specific booth, but just the art. I come from a family of artists. I was kind of driven up into the northern section, or whatever you want to call it, where they have kind of the big artist row and everything going on, and just the fabulous selection of art
Yeah.
going on in
Yeah.
different mediums. Like Chris and I were talking before the air. I was talking about some of the picture box treatments where they do these layered, treatments of different things that I think are just awesome. And then when I see that stuff, as much as I love all the games, and I always have to buy a game or two, etc., the art just blew me away this year.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, the diversity of art styles too was really, for me as an art,
Yeah.
again, coming from a history art, is like really impressive. So
Cool.
maybe not a traditional gaming answer, but it's what strikes me.
Do we have any more questions?
No, but I have bad news.
Uh-oh.
So Amazing Shake, who asked about RAM earlier, said when they looked it up, it's closed.
Oh no.
Did I
It's
just
not
jinx
the-
myself or
You
something?
might have.
Oh.
I'll
That
have
would
to
explain
I'll
why I
have to
didn't
go
see
and
it.
put a rose prayerfully on
Yeah.
the sidewalk there where they are, and give an
Oh,
offering.
that's-
I have to give alms to the gods or
Oh,
something.
That's terrible.
Because that's really that's always my way of.
I remember.
It is.
Yeah.
Like I always said that to people. I would be walking down the street and I
Yep.
would see the sign, the Ram, and it was like, all right, I'm here. There's the Ram.
Maybe that's
That
why
was
you
my
didn't see the
landmark.
sign.
I was looking for it,
Yeah.
but not having been here in almost 10 years,
Yeah.
things look familiar, and yet I always get something about these streets. I walk
yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
convention center, and I never know what direction And I finally decided this convention, I'm just sticking to Capitol Street or whatever, and that's it, because I get confused way too easy. Somebody put a confusion spell on me, I think, inside while I was working the booth. But that's sad. The Ram is closed.
Yep.
So what's the new Stampede place then? Because Ram was always it.
It's
You
every
had
place.
it. You had it. Yeah, that's true.
The last I checked, anytime you go anywhere, it's just packed.
Because
with
getting
Gen
in the
Con
Ram
people.
was just,
Yeah.
and I still remember people sitting at that bar and they
Yep.
would play the 300.
They'd
and
play
would
300,
right?
yeah. It'd be like midnight.
Or something, and they'd
you'd
be playing.
eating,
They'd always put something.
Yep,
God
you'd be
bless
eating-
them. They'd always put something on.
eating
That
something,
was
you're eating
thematic.
something greasy at way too late
Yeah.
at night and drinking and watching 300 on the
Yeah.
on a big screen. They had a huge screen.
And you're
up
thinking
there.
to yourself, why can't it be like this every day of the year? But-
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think we are going to wrap this show up.
I think we're good.
Yeah. So we're going to go get back into the thick of it and everything, and go work the booth for a few more hours before we maybe go do something fun on a Saturday night at Gen Con for a change. So,
You never know.
So, well, we thank everybody for joining us. Rick, what do you got to tell everybody?
Folks, as always, if you enjoyed what you watched, please give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow. And we do post our shows on YouTube later. We read all your comments both during the show and later, so keep them coming. And I'm not even sure when our next show will be. In
Our next
approximately
show will
3
be
weeks,
3
right?
weeks from tomorrow.
All right.
And yeah, it'll be about something.
Something, I don't
It's
know.
going to be about an adventure module. I think I know what it's going to be about.
All right.
We're going to jump into the Desert of Desolation series.
Ooh,
Yep,
all right.
I-3, and then you can figure out that I-4 and I-5 are going
Yeah.
to come right after that. Because
we haven't gotten to that yet.
We've been chomping to get to that series.
And we
we've
both
gotta-
like that module,
love
folks.
We
so
love those.
We're
so-
both a fan of that.
Yeah, so that's
all
gonna
right.
be
So
a
we'll
happy
dive
thing.
into Pharaoh then.
Yeah,
Boom.
we're going to Pharaoh I-3 in
All
3
right.
weeks from tomorrow,
3
whatever
weeks.
date that happens to be.
Yep.
So, all right. Take care, everybody. Safe travels. If you're at Gen Con, come check us out.
Yep.
If you're not,
Say hi.
Yes, say hi. And if you're not, we'll catch up with you in 3 weeks on the next episode.
See you next time.
Bye.